Hey guys, this is Bailey Wiki again. We're going to do a tutorial today on another Foundry module called Vehicles and Mechanisms. This is a module also by Grand, who did the multi-level token module from our last tutorial. As usual, I'm starting with a demo here of just some things that I've built in my maps that I use it for, just to give you an example of how you yourself could use it. There is a lot that you can use this for, from carts and other things to big naval battles, which you're seeing here. Huge scale stuff that a lot of you may not know how to do it, and it's tricky to get some of this stuff working. So I'm going to show you some of those tricks today. As always, you can jump around in this. If you go to the comments of the video, you can jump to the parts that interest you the most. We're going to start with some of the basics of the module itself, and then we're going to jump into some step-by-step stuff to help you see how I built these things. Also, all of the maps and elements that you're seeing here are, most of them are built by me. I'll tell you when it's not. But these are all things that are available to my Patreons, and a lot of this is for free in my Foundry Ready module. I do make these maps, I do make them Foundry Ready, so hopefully you guys can learn a little bit from what I've learned and see how I make these large battles where you can like literally jump into ships and then out again, and it's just a lot of fun making these. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. So first things first, let's talk about some of the rules and prereqs for using the vehicles module. First, you do have to install both the vehicles module and multi-level token module. It does have a dependency on the multi-level token module. They both, as you saw in the last one, they both communicate through the GM's account to make a lot of the complicated things that they do actually work. So make sure that you have a GM logged in or it won't work. And then remember that you have an alt key here. And when you're moving things around, especially if you have a control token, you may throw things out of whack. And if you have your vehicle set up wrong and they're attaching to other vehicles, things can go haywire. So remember to hold down the alt key if you're moving things around. It'll save you a lot of pain. And then the fourth thing is there's actually a conflict with token attacher, which I'll demonstrate here in a second. But I'll also show you the way around that conflict, because it's really awesome to combine this with token attacher and build vehicles that you can use across maps, especially when you get into like large scale things. You don't want to build a vehicle every time you build one map, and token attacher lets you bring that vehicle to all of your maps really easily. So let's just look at the basics of token attacher. First of all, or excuse me, of vehicles. First of all, you want to set your defaults for your drawings, just like we did before. I usually set 1 for a pixel width, about half opacity. Make sure your fill type is set to none. Your text I usually drop to an 8-point font size, so it's small. These boxes are going to be invisible to your players, but I just want them to be subtle for me as a GM as I'm navigating around the map. You'll notice multi-level token is in here. I'm going to show you some things we can do with that later, but we're going to focus here on the vehicles tab that was introduced when we activated the vehicles module. Right off the top, you can see you have capture tokens, capture drawings, tiles, walls, and map notes. And there's also lights and sound. So you can capture anything. And the way it works is anything that's inside of this area will get captured. Walls have to be completely contained in the area, but anything else, it goes by the center of the object. So the center of a WebP or a PNG file, for example, as long as the center is in this space, it'll get captured. So what do I mean by captured? I don't think it'll show up in this demo, but you have 3 options when I click on capture tokens. You have none, meaning it'll never capture a token. You have auto, which means that it'll automatically capture any tokens that come into contact with the box. And the last one is manual, meaning you have to manually set something to connect versus it automatically doing it. And this can be really helpful when you're building vehicles that have multiple components where you don't want to accidentally bring in other PNGs or images or lights or whatever. You can lock them in. I'm going to show you how to do that here in a second. For right now, we're going to set the tokens to manual, or to auto, excuse me, and then we'll capture a drawing here manually. And I won't try to show you the other ones until we get further into the tutorial. Fixed token orientations. If you don't use tokens that are top down like I do, if you use the rounded tokens and you want to maintain their orientation as things get moved and spun and whatnot with your vehicles, you'd select that. Wall collision means that if your vehicle collides with a wall, specifically the tokens in your vehicle, then they'll be stopped by the wall. Otherwise, they can keep going through, and you may not want that behavior. Controller tokens are super important. You're going to name a controller token, and it can be anything, but they have to be the exact same name. And I'll show you where to name it. But you might call it like, cart, which we'll use later. Or you might want to call it cart2 to make it specific. So we'll talk about some conventions later. Cross-scene controls means that you can use the same token across multiple scenes. Because multi-level token allows you to do that with some of its projection technology, I can imagine scenarios where you might use this, but it'll be relatively rare. And the name of the pivot token can be separate from the control token, meaning there's a token you can define as where the entire vehicle pivots around. If you have questions on what I mean by this and you can't pick it up from this tutorial, the documentation on this is really, really good. It's got some good animated GIF examples of how these different configurations can work. And I'll link to that in the comments or the description of this. Token control scheme, we won't talk too much about this. This is just the different ways that you can control it or how the control scheme works. Absolute, tank, and relative. I'm not going to try to go into that in this tutorial because I think it's a little bit too much detail, but just realize it just changes how you can manipulate things. You can make little, like controller pads to make something work if you really, really wanted to. And these X, Y coefficient, angular coefficients just affect how much, like if I move the controller token by 1 square, how much will it move the actual vehicle by? And that way, again, you can make some interesting controls. But we're going to go go ahead and configure this. And we'll say, again, auto, manual for drawings. And I'm just going to show you this one piece. Actually, there's one other thing I should show this conflict. And we'll say, actually, no, that's probably good. And we'll give it a controller token of test1. Save that. You'll notice that this diagram is invisible to your users, even though you can make out a faint line there. So let's go ahead and bring a control token in. And we'll name this test1, just like we did earlier. If I move this, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm moving this with it. Now let's grab a token and put it inside. You notice my token is now automatically grabbed by this machine. If I hold down Alt, I can move this control token anywhere I want, and the machine still functions the same way. I'll hold down Alt again, move it back to where I want it, and then let's go ahead and collide with some other tokens. You can see how it automatically picks them all up because that's what it's set to. Now, if I wanted to bring a, an image in here, let's go ahead and I think I've got a horse hiding in here somewhere. And let's move back to my token layer. You can see it's not automatically grabbing that horse. What I have to do is go to my drawings, right click my special, whoops, got to go to make sure you're in select mode. You got to right click your drawing and you have two options here. You've got capture now and you have release all. So if I capture now, it captured one object. That's because it will manually capture an image. And let's find out why it didn't work. Oh, well, let's see. Manually capture drawings. Oh, that's it. I did drawings, not tiles. Now, if I right click it again, capture now. Now I've captured the drawing along with it. I mentioned that there's a problem with multi-level token. Let's say, for example, that we wanted to make this individual, we wanted to attach elements to him. If I did that, and let's attach the drawing to him. What happens if I try to move him is I get an infinite loop, or I can. It kicked him out, fortunately. But you can see it starts to wreak havoc on your setup because it's got two tokens that are trying to drive the bus, if you will. So we're going to talk about how to eliminate that here in this tutorial. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so you're looking at a town square. This is a really dirty, muddy town. This is a granary in the middle. And we are going to pick up these two passengers and put them in this cart. So let's see what kind of elements that we've got here laid out for us. First of all, we have the image itself of the cart. We've got a diagram that we've made, and we haven't given it any configuration yet. We've just kind of laid it there. And we also have some lights that we've attached, which you can't see because it's daytime, but there's some lights in there. And then we've also attached the sound of a horse clip-clopping on cobblestone. So we're going to attach all of these things and make a vehicle out of it, and then we're going to give it a horse to pull it. So let's start with the diagram. Remember, I just drew that initial diagram. I wanted to draw it long enough to actually capture the horse as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and right click it. I'll go into capture tokens, call that auto, capture drawings, manual, and I'm going to change everything else to manual. Even though I'm not technically attaching anything else to it, maybe I want to use this in the future to attach some things, so I'll leave it that way. Not going to change any of this stuff. Wall collision may be wise, but I'm not going to use it for this tutorial. And the name of the controller token, let's call it cart1. I don't need to do crossing control. In fact, that might work against me. And then I'm not going to give it a pivot token because I'm just going to use the control token itself as the pivot point. If you don't set a pivot token, it'll just make the center of the image the pivot point as well. And then I'm going to leave everything else the same. Now I need to pull my control token in. And I'm showing you, by the way, the standard way to do this. And we'll give this same name, cart1. And I just want to make sure that I didn't capitalize that. Cart1, okay, all lowercase. All right, so now, just with that alone set up, you notice I don't have anything yet. So what I do is I right click. By the way, as long as one thing is set up for manual connection, you'll get these two options. And now I'm going to say capture now. And it's captured 6 objects. Remember, I had lights and sounds and some other things. Now if I move this, everything else moves with it, including my lights and my sound. Now I want a driver. And I'm going to put this guard in here. As you can see, I can move them around. I did create a special token here. This is actually, this animated horse is from Jinker. I'll link to his Patreon from here as well, but you've heard me talk about him before. He just makes great animated tokens and other animated assets that you can use to kind of bring your maps to life. This is a horse that he let me borrow for this tutorial. But this horse, because it's a token, it picks it up with everything else. So here I can, move my cart around with the horse attached to it. I did want to show you one interesting thing. I'm going to do a tutorial here in a bit on this, but let's see if I can find my transformer. So sometimes you don't want an animated horse, especially if they're just sitting there. I'm going to show you how to use another module in the future that just lets you transform. And I could have used a better matching horse to do that. But anyway, some really interesting things you can do with the token magic effects module, which I'll do at a future date. But with that, this is how you build a normal vehicle for, any given map that you've got. But I want to reuse this vehicle in some other way. But if I use token attacher, then I'm going to create a conflict. So what I want to do is actually change how I'm doing this. So I'm going to go back into my config, and I'm going to have it automatically capture tokens. And I'm just going to make everything else none. And what I'm doing here is what I really like about, and what's really useful about vehicles, is that it creates a magnet. That drawing attaches anything I want to attach to it, specifically tokens. And everything else essentially is maybe redundant to the token attacher module. So I'm actually going to get rid of everything, including the controller token reference. And I'm going to update my drawing. Now I'm just back to nothing again. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click my controller token. Actually, I'm not going to right-click, sorry. I'm going to use this over here. This is from the token attacher module. And I'm going to start attaching things to it this way. So let's grab my sound. I'll attach that. You get this blue banner to tell you that it worked. I do have the select everything tool, which will help you lasso things like what I just did right there. Select my lights, attach those. I have the drawing itself, of course. And then I've got the cart. And I'll attach that. And then I'll close this out. And what I've done, if you remember from the last tutorial, is I've done something very similar. But this time, rather than just having a token attached combination of items, you can see the tokens are moving. I didn't attach those. It's because that tile that drawing that I laid down is a vehicle's tile. And that's what creates the magnet to attach everything else to it. And so this gives me, you can see there, if you move some of this stuff too fast, you'll get some strange behavior. But this gives me a vehicle now that I can literally cut and paste this and put it into another map. So I created this just sample NPC token called New Wagon. And I'm going to create a prototype token out of it. And then I've got this selected. And I'm just going to say assign token. Now what I've done is I've taken this token and everything attached to it, except for these tokens because they're only attached through vehicles. And I have put it into my actor tab. And now I can deploy this anytime that I want. And this is a really powerful idea because this is what gives you the ability to create vehicles and complex naval battles and stuff like that we'll get to later. Again, it doesn't have any tokens attached to it, including my horse. But now I can drag my horse in, and I've got a fully functioning cart. And by the way, this may be wise to move to another. Oh, you notice what I did here? So I've got two different modules running. It may be better to detach this and move this off to the side a little bit so that it doesn't conflict. But anyway, I'm going to show you now how we can use this in other maps. Okay, now we're in a nighttime road. There's nothing going on here. This is a road through the forest. And we're going to go back into our actor tab, and we're going to grab our wagon that we just created, and we're going to put it down. And I'll use control and the mouse wheel to move it to where I want it to go. Now I'm going to grab my horse, and I'm going to do the same thing. Spin him around using the control button. Put him right there, and let's give it a driver. And you can hear the clip-clopping sound, things like that. And now, using another module, I can find my other module. Here we go. Now I can animate this background. And so I've created a nice, interesting mood with an asset that I can duplicate over and over again. And now I'm traveling this, this road at night. So I'm traveling my road. I come up to some strangers, like a ride. Whoops, got the wrong guy. Get him out of the way. And because I've got vehicles, I can attach to everything. I can turn my Parallaxia back on again, and I'm back on the road. And this is just a really, really great way of creating maps that you can, using multiple modules together, where you can create some really, really great effects for your players. So let's go into another map and I'll show you something else. So now we're back to the docks. You guys have seen this map before. And on the docks, I've got this, this arm that, if you've ever played with this map before, you know that it moves around. And it's a cargo, it's a cargo arm. Let's grab the dark galleon. I'm going to show you what's involved with this. Essentially, I just dropped an entire functioning vehicle on the map. But let's say there's no way on that galleon, and my players need to get on board. You can do creative things with these modules where I can put my user on here, and let's see how I've got it setting set up. So I set it up manually. So let's build this. Right click it, say auto capture tokens, everything else we'll leave alone. Now let's see what kind of mileage we get. Okay, so now let's talk about this ship and some larger scale things that you can do. So here we're on a giant ocean map. This is the galleon, which many of you have seen. But if we, and it's a whole map in and of itself. It's got multiple floors. But if we zoom out all the way, we can see that we have a naval battle potentially underway. And what I've done is, in my compendium, I have a bunch of different ships, like the trireme, and the triremes have different abilities and armor classes and speed and things like that. So, I can just drag one out of the compendium and it gives me a fully formed ship that I can have battles on and things like that. I can move that ship around. I can put, NPCs on it, and they'll all move around with it because it's using the vehicles module combined with token attacher. So let's look at what you can do here. So let me grab the dark frigate and drop it onto the map. And so here I've got my map. And if I drop a player onto it, let's put him on there. And let's zoom in and decompose what's going on with this ship. So this ship is primarily a image. So this is a WebP image here that makes the ship itself work or take shape. And then it's got a few drawings on it. The main one that we've been talking about is this one that runs the length of the ship, and it's for the vehicles. It's the magnet to attach tokens, and everything else is left blank. Because again, I'm just using vehicles for its magnetizing abilities. But there are some other drawings here. For example, here's one in the middle. It's got no vehicles information, but it does use multi-level token. You can see it's a teleporter going in and out, and it's an automatic teleporter, and then it also clones, it's cloning a source location from down below. So inside this hold here, it can clone that image up to the top. And that's it for this particular drawing. I have two staircases that also have multi-level token drawings on them. This one goes down. It's activated by clicking that journal icon. And then I have another staircase in the back that also goes down. I have a number of lights. In fact, I'll turn the lights down and you can see. I also have a number of walls that are pre-set up. And then there are obviously sounds and journal entries. So this is a lot more complicated in terms of number of pieces than the cart, but not that much more complicated. And so all of these pieces are now installed, but because and I'll just show you, I'll zoom out and show you what, I think this looks cool, what a nighttime naval skirmish might look like. But let's actually turn the lights back on before you can't see anything. And if I take my character, and again, I just dropped this right into the map, but if I take him and jump down into the hold, you can see he materializes down there. If you don't know how I did this, you should check out my other tutorial. But if I jump into now the frigate map, you can see that I find my player here in the hold. So this is sunlight shining down in on the hold, and here's the staircases that he descended. But he's in a fully functioning map. Here's down below where there's sleeping quarters for the crew. And I won't try to explore this whole map with you today, but that's pretty interesting, right? And I have Parallaxia turned on, but I can turn it off here and freeze my water. But I just dove into an entire map from a much larger map that I dragged out and made instantly from my actor compendium. And that's really, really powerful stuff if you make some really large scale types of things with your players. Of course, they don't have to be this large, but just the fact that you can do it, this was really just to kind of show you one of the most absurd kind of use cases. But here I'm back to my main map, and here's my player. And just to show you, because I think it's wild. So let's drag out the Trireme Prime, which has got all the upgrades, the weapons, everything else. We've now dropped it directly onto our map, and you can see it's got lots of cool things attached. It's got this fiery ram at the front. It's got, if you can hear the audio in the background, it's got some rowers that are rowing underneath. It's got this big fiery brazier in the back. And we can literally just, walk up to the staircase and it'll take us there. If we were on our user views, it would take us directly there and would center on our player. As the GM, we have to go chase them. But here, I'm in the rowing level of the Trireme. I've got my crew, and I just love this. And I can go down. I've got a little wizard's room down here. And you can even go all the way down to the bilge level if you want to. There's nothing much to see down there. But I just love this. I love being able to have a base follow me into any map. I think that it's just a very, very interesting way of building maps in general. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's so much fun to make these things, and the power of this platform to support this type of gameplay is really outstanding. And it's even more fun when you're a player and you get to discover a ship like this frigate that's just amazing on its own, but then to be able to adventure on it and bring it back into your storylines, and do multiple things that are at a scale that I think were really hard to do before Foundry came along. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you want to see more like this. I've got some other modules I'll be showcasing like this in the future. Let me know if the format of this is correct and everything else. And again, if you want to support my work, or if you want any of these maps or elements that you saw, it's all available. I just have a monthly Patreon. You get access to really everything that I've got. And you can stop by Discord and tell me what you think in general. So that's it. Have fun making your maps, guys. Talk to you soon.